So thanks very
Okay,
much
cool.
anyway for doing it. And I've been watching you for a bit now, and it's been really cool. You've been doing really awesome stuff. It's really nice to like find people on the internet where you're like, oh, this person gets it. They're like they've got attention to detail on everything that they're doing. Like obviously your voice is phenomenal anyway, and which obviously takes a lot of work. I'm sure there's natural gift there, but obviously, like, I don't know how much people realize, how much work goes into singing really well. I'm still like trying to nail that. So, so,
I actually just went to a voice coach for the first time this year, just because I was finding like, because I was getting a lot more session gigs. So between like playing shows and going into the studio and then doing session work and going to rehearsal, so I ended up singing for hours and hours every week. And I was finding that my voice was kind of ragged at the end. So
yeah,
I
I
went
bet. I bet.
to, yeah, especially because with the way I sing is pretty full throttle.
Yeah,
So
well, I was going to say that it's kind of all or nothing, isn't it? Really, like the amount of projecting that you're doing, and it's all like these kind of. Sorry, I'm going to turn my phone down a bit. Hopefully, I won't get messages throughout this.
oh, you're
Um,
fine. Yeah, so I just didn't I don't know anything about it. Um,
yeah, I when I first got into it, I knew absolutely nothing, and I was screaming my lungs out, and doing all the wrong things all the time. And then I had an opera teacher singer, which I was afforded through a weird scheme that they did while through unemployment in this country for a little while, called
oh,
New Deal for Musicians. It was really great because it was the first time you could go to the job center and say, I want to work in the music industry, and then not just say, no, get a real job. Do you know what I mean? And they said they would have people from the industry there to kind of consult and to kind of help you try and find your way and everything. So it was a really useful thing. Bit of
amazing.
Yeah, I know. It was one of the fortunate results of Tony Blair wanting to kiss up to the youth and therefore going via kind of Oasis and people like that. And he was kind of really trying to get in with, he did some pretty bad things as well. So, 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 I don't want
Yeah,
to,
yeah, in
but,
conjunction with
but
our guy.
yeah, but for that specific thing, it worked out really well for me, and I'm sure a lot of musicians who'd up until that point been getting a lot of resistance trying to do anything in music. I mean, I don't know about you, but your path, if I'm not mistaken, is that you kind of fell into it a little by accident after doing a lot of life journey kind of stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So you kind of traveled the world practically, and then came back home, and then suddenly found the bug. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd always loved music and I'd always been a singer, you know, in my own right, for my own entertainment.
Sure.
And,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did like, in high school,
Right, sure.
did
Stage and stuff
talent
like
shows
that.
every once in a while or whatever,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
nothing serious. And for the most part, it was like, it was
And
just for fun.
you weren't like the lead in the plays and things like that or anything like that.
I did play Sandy in Grease my
Ah,
junior
there you
year.
go. There's the start of the whole thing. That's the weird little genesis, isn't it?
I
This
guess
weird
that,
rock and roll meets theatricality. Do you know what I mean? It's a young girl version, if you know what I mean, rather than the full blown
right.
monster that you've become. And I hope you take that in the complimentary fashion that it's meant.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So
I don't know. I always thought Rizzo was the great part.
right, sure, yeah. I mean, we
Uh,
don't always get to play the part that we want, though, do we? I was always a tree in the plays and stuff, shoved in the background because I was a bit ADHD, and that was in a time when they didn't really know what that was. So they just
right.
kind of they just kind of see me as a nuisance. So then when it came to these kind of things, rather than pushing me forward, it would be like, I'll put the nuisance children in the background, and we'll get the well-behaved ones to play all the leads and stuff. So I was I there was no sign whatsoever that I end up doing all the crazy frontman stuff that I ended up doing. Do you know what I mean? It was like
Yeah,
all smothered through, like with through my school kind of time. But yeah, so that's
yeah.
that's interesting because then obviously you did Space Cream for a while, which I've just been researching just now in anticipation of this. So It's a great description, which is so I'm looking at my notes. Ann Wilson in Bowie's Rocky Horror Picture Show, which carries on the rock and roll and carries on the theatricality quite nicely from Grease. But we progressed to Rocky Horror, which is always the best way.
Was like a fluke. I mean, I just wanted something to do because I was a weird, lonely high school kid, and I moved all the time. So I was like, I tried out, and I'm not a great actor by any stretch. Right. People are always telling me to get into acting to boost my career, and I'm like, I don't think I'm very good.
Yeah, sure. I understand that. But there's a whole different thing between being your best self on stage and playing someone completely different or something. Do you know? Does that make sense?
Exactly. So it didn't even occur to me that I just, but because they had us try out by singing.
Sure. And you had the natural pipes.
Yeah. So I just kind of automatically got the part, and I was kind of surprised by it. But I mean, I really fell in love with.
You didn't expect to be talking about Grease now, did you?
I did not expect to be talking about Grease. This is hilarious. By the way, I just want to go on a small segue because I just remembered that the girl who did play Rizzo was like an idol of mine in high school.
Really? Wow.
I was like always too afraid to. I really thought she was cool, and and I was like a new kid, so I was afraid to kind of approach her. But she had 2 boyfriends who knew about each other and were cool with each other, and were both.
Wow! In what year was that?
This was yeah.
You did Space Scream for 5 years, right?
No, we did. So let's see. I was in high school like 10 years ago. Right. So then we did Space Cream. Yeah, for like 4 years, I guess. Yeah. And then then about like a year and a half ago went solo. Yeah.
And how was that? Like, because obviously I saw some footage. It seems like you were definitely like already a kind of quite out there performer and kind of, quite a flamboyant and things like that. Did you find that people took to you and it went well? You got quite a few. You did the Warped Tour, is that correct? And you played like some cool places, Viper Room and Troubadour and stuff. So.
Yeah, we won. We actually won a battle of the bands at the old House of Blues.
Right, wicked, awesome.
Yeah. Towards the beginning, right before it got shut down. So that was like towards the beginning, and then and that's how we got on the Warped Tour thing, which was really bizarre. It was like we really did not fit into that.
Yeah, well, I thought that was an interesting mix. Tell me a bit about that.
It was so odd. I mean, we were really a band of misfits. It was me, my 50-year-old guitarist.
Yeah, an interesting mix of personnel in the band.
Yeah. A cross-dressing drummer and our like pretty boy bassist.
Yeah.
So it was just the funniest mix of people. It was kind of the impossible band.
Yeah.
And so I mean that band was it was great, and we would. We started to get some good traction and everything, and it definitely, I mean, like I said, I'm not trained as a singer or anything, so just being on stage, we played tons of shows.
Sure.
And just doing that really changed the way that I sang.
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, also, I'd never competed with a band before. You know what I mean? Everything I'd done really was folky.
Sure. Like, is that how you started kind of more like, because I noticed you had like Joni Mitchell and Lou Reed and things like that on your influence list. Did you start off a bit more like acoustic singer-songwriter, like what you've almost kind of semi gone back to, but only in this capacity, if you know what I
mean? Yeah. I've actually had to kind of, I know I have calluses on my fingers for the first time in like 6 years. And God, I forgot how fucking hard the D minor chord is for me. I'm not a good guitar player, but I mean I use it to write, so it's good to know. But like for what I do on stage, I have like a proper guitar.
A guy who's spent all their time focusing on just the guitar, not all these other things.
Exactly. Somebody who gets a boner for different
Yeah,
plugins
exactly.
and
Actually cares. Yeah.
pedals and
Cares about like one tone from another. Like I've got like dirty and clean, and that like okay, that's fine. Do you know?
I'm actually really anal about guitar sound. Like I actually ride my guitarist pretty hard. Um, and I always end up being really close to whoever's playing guitar with me because um, I think it's just the frequency that I end up, it's the
Right.
closest vocal frequency,
Sure.
so I end up
And what you've
harmonizing with
got to
it quite a
follow.
bit.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I end up being very particular with that. And like I'm super particular to on a lot of songs, like I'm like, you gotta play a Les Paul for this or whatever. Like I have
Right, right, yeah.
I'm actually kind of particular when it comes to guitar, but I'm just
You're
not a
you're a backseat guitarist.
I'm a backseat guitarist. And I sing actually a lot of my solos. A lot of the solos in my songs I wrote
Oh,
by
really?
singing the
Oh,
guitarist,
awesome.
which I'm
I
sure is
think
incredibly
if
obnoxious,
like
but
so my all the guitarists I work with are far more skilled than me, and I think if I ever like did that, I think they'd just like piss their pants laughing and be like, "Stop! Just stop that now." Like, yeah, so I'm very blessed to have like always been like saddled, not saddled with by fate, you know, with people who are really really good at like at their instrument, and so I don't even need to worry. I just need to give them the seed and they can go and turn it into something wonderful, which is quite
yeah.
lucky. So I can take about I'm quite like full picture kind of thing all the time, so like it's really nice to have any individual be really good at what they do. I was going to say, so also you, speaking of the full picture, you edit as well, is that right?
Yeah, I like edit and direct and yeah, do
Which
the
I mean, that's a whole nother, like, I mean, being in control of your image is one thing, but actually getting in and doing the editing is a whole nother thing. My partner's a filmmaker, editor, and you know, I kind of see how much work and like attention to detail and attention to the wider picture, and like that's quite an all-consuming job in itself. Especially your videos and really great and eye-catching and full of concept and organization. I just wanted you to talk a little bit about like the whole, like what go from start to finish, because you've just finished a new video, so maybe it's a good way to kind of get these feelings out in a therapy style, like from start to finish, what your process on a video is.
yeah. Well, first of all, I just wanted to backtrack a little bit and just say
Sorry,
that
I'm racing. Yeah.
oh no, you're fine. I just didn't want to. I didn't mean to imply that I write everything that the guitarists do
Oh,
or that
no,
they're
no,
not
no.
brilliant guitarists. I just meant sometimes I have like a solo melody stuck in my head, so I'll sing it to them.
You
And,
might have we in England we have quite a callous offhand attitude in the rehearsal room. I don't know how it is on the LA side of things, but we're kind of like a lot like, do you want to do this? No, I don't. Fuck off, wanker, or whatever. That'll get bleeped out after. But yeah, do you know what I mean? So yeah, so it might be
yeah,
a whole
you guys
different
pick on
kind
each
of
other a lot.
dynamic.
I like
Yeah, a lot. That's almost why we get in a band in the first place. Do you know? It's so that we can have some people that we can, you know, take the piss out of, and it not be the end of the world. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, so tell us a bit about the video process.
So the video process, it's really intense. So I mean, obviously it starts with the song, and then I don't know, a lot of the time I'll get an idea for the video as I'm singing on the song in the studio. Something about singing in the studio, I just get really, because I'm doing it over and over and
Right.
over and over, and I get really into that headspace.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then I mean, Creature wasn't really a concept. It was just I had just started kind of fucking
Getting
around
into it.
with After Effects, and I wanted to do some like green screen animation stuff. So I just had a bunch of weird imagery in my head, and I was like, I'm gonna throw it all together. Like some of my favorite videos, the concept has nothing to do with it at all.
Were they all collected up over a time, or were they kind of like all like you brainstormed a load of different things, or how does, because obviously there's quite a lot of different bits going on in there.
Yeah.
Or is it just individual fascinations? You're like, oh, I'd like a bit of that, or I'd like a bit of that.
It was just individual facts. I was like, I'm gonna make like 5 or 6 different scenes that have nothing to do with each other, just because I want to, because they sound fun.
Yeah,
and
sure.
like an image I have in my head, and fuck it. So I worked with
Well, I
my
think
friend.
it works in the reverse way of like with the context of the song, because it kind of says like you're all these things. Do you know what I mean? Like when you're saying, am I still the thing that you, it's kind of like giving a kind of thing of I could be any of these things. And does that make sense?
I guess to be honest, the visual stuff has nothing to do with the song, and
Sure.
I was totally comfortable with that. I was like, you know what? It's a it's like Bowie with a tractor on a
Sure.
beach. You
Like,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
the
Do
ashes
whatever the
to
fuck
ashes.
you want.
Yeah, yeah. Ashes to ashes
Um,
makes the clown or whatever walking along a beach. Yeah, yeah, sure.
yeah, it was just imagery in my head, and I was like, I'm gonna put it to this music
Right, yeah.
because it's fun.
Right.
Um, whereas like more like Rock and Roll No More obviously
Big
was,
heavy concept.
yeah, very heavy concept. And I mean, I wrote that song when I was like sobbing when I wrote that song, um and it felt so personal. It still does feel, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's about how intense it is to be a rock musician in this day and age, and
Yeah.
you know, the kind of inherent humor and uh I don't know, just the state of terror and the state of, you get so despondent, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah, sure.
kind of rolling all
Well,
of that into the thing.
the way I describe being a rock musician these days to people is like that it's there's two things I say. One is that I say it's a bit like being a samurai, because you're like this lost like warrior, like with no like particular cause, because rock isn't, it's like you've got a cause, but it's not like there's this thing of rock like we've got to fight for rock or anything going on or anything. You're just kind of doing it on your own. You're like this ronin or whatever, wandering about, kind of like, yeah, I know all this stuff, I've learned all this stuff, and now I'm just kind of like jobless in a sense. Do you know what I mean? Like, or rudderless, I guess. And then the other way I describe it is it's a bit like being a cobbler. And it's like a cobbler looks out into the street and he sees everybody walking around with shoes on, and he goes, hang on, I know how to make these things from scratch, and yet I can't seem to scrape a living doing this career. Do you know what I mean? Which but everybody's still wearing shoes. I don't get it. And it's like with musicians, like everybody's still listening to music, but for some reason, even though like the real people who really know how to put it all together and make it all and everything, they're like the ones who are struggling. Whereas, you know, the kind of plastic ones that are put together quite cheaply and everything, everybody's buying that. Do you
Yeah,
know what
yeah,
I
I
mean?
mean, for sure. Yeah, and that was essentially when I wrote that song. It was because somebody who was a, you know, a big mentor of mine, really broke my heart and just completely sold out and told me that the only way I was going to make it was to become a pop musician. And it was, you
Right.
know, it was kind of this giant rift in an important relationship for me. And
Sure.
um it was sort of a turning point of just me deciding to do the thing that I love rather
Yeah,
than
yeah.
fit into something. And so yeah, I mean, that was the whole concept. So or the whole meaning of the song. So then the concept, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I feel like there's a lot of humor in
Yeah,
the,
yeah, totally. Yeah, it's. I think you strike a really nice line between like it being of it is of import or serious heartfelt stuff, but it's never kind of like a pain to listen to for that reason, if that makes sense. Like
I'm
it has a tinge of like, you know, but I understand this is rock and roll, baby, kind of thing.
I'm not particularly saccharine.
Right.
Um in my self-expression. It's just not the way it happens for
It's
me.
good that you didn't go the pop route then, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, even a song like Superstar, which is the only song I've ever had on a record that I didn't have a massive hand in writing. That was by my old Space Cream guitarist, and I ended up keeping it because it's an incredible song, but it's so sweet and
Yeah,
it's so vulnerable and in
right.
a I mean, I do vulnerable pretty well, but it's like a darker vulnerability. This is a very
Sure.
hopeful vulnerability
Yeah,
that I
yeah, yeah.
wouldn't write on my own.
Sure.
So it's just not really where I come from. It's not
Yeah, yeah.
where I write from. So I mean, that's one of the few that I ever kept because it was something that I really believed and really felt. But it was like it was as if someone put it into words that I wouldn't have
Sure.
been able
Yeah,
to
yeah,
use
totally.
on my
Awesome.
own. I would have
That's
been.
lucky, isn't it? It's
It's
great.
really lucky. It was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah,
Um,
awesome.
yeah, but
And
I
so
mean,
then with so obviously you had to organize all these people for that rock and roll no more video. That must have been, and all this like organization of all the sets, shots, and you're directing on set whilst performing on set. Is that right?
yeah, I was directing while lying face up in a casket, covered in. We couldn't find the right makeup to make it look drippy, so we ended up just using fabric paint on
Right.
my face, and it burned.
Wow. Oh, suffer for
And
your art.
yeah, and then it was raining the whole day. It was raining, which
Well,
it wasn't supposed to. You know, Southern California, we got a bit of
yeah. How did you manage
your,
that?
yeah, we got a bit of your weather. It ended up being perfect because we had these slow-mo. We had like this one slow-mo camera because all my friends who were there shooting with me are in film school, so they have access to, you know, to a bunch of tech while they're building their reel and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they had all this great gear, and we had this one really beautiful slow-mo camera, and we decided to shoot the vast majority of it with that, so that, you know, it just really get the raindrops. And so like the stuff where you see me singing, I'm actually singing in double time.
Right, wicked, awesome. Yeah. How was that?
It's chipmunk singing. It's really funny.
Did you have this natural thing of trying to match the key of it once it was up as well?
Yeah, I mean, you have to.
It's weird, right? You're not going to sing it in your normal voice, but at that, like, to match that. So it's really weird, right?
Yeah, it's really funny. But yeah, that was bananas. I was like, we did basically 3 days of footage in 12 hours because that's all we had. So it was just really intense with a bunch of my friends. I just got all the clothes I had together and we threw them on at different people. And you know, luckily, like I said, I have really great creative friends. So like, you know, who could help produce it and who actually know what they're doing in that regard. And my friend Alice is like this really, she doesn't even do it professionally. She's just this incredible makeup artist who's like, she just does it for fun sometimes.
Really
and
awesome.
So she's amazing. And my friend Manon's a cinematographer, and he doesn't get to DP very much just because he's newer, but he's talented. And so people are like excited to get to have the
what they love.
Exactly.
That's really great. I mean, I think it's it shows as well, because like to look at that product, it looks you can hold it up next to any video made by any kind of decent artist and it stands up. So you know, it's really I think all these things, you know, it shows that, you know, there's a lot of really great talent bubbling under, and if it's all just kind of amassed in the right way and given a kind of, you know, focus or whatever, then it can all produce something great, really, which I suppose is the history of rock and roll before this century, if you know what I mean. Like, it was a lot about every time a new scene would pop up, it was a lot about the creative underbelly kind of coming up and expressing that new thing, if you know what I mean. So yeah,
absolutely. And for me, like, I was a visual artist before I really completely gave myself over to music. And I mean, that's what I thought I was going to be a painter, you know. That's what I went to school for that for like a year, and then I was too strung out on drugs to concentrate at school. But yeah, I mean, I love visual art, and so it's just a really cool way of bringing the two together.
Awesome. But it's not all about that, is it? Because you play a lot live.
I do play a lot live, yeah. Well, when
you play with bands and you're always rocking out, and obviously we're talking, you know, we're presuming / hoping that this doesn't become the state of all human life for the next like year or whatever, and like we're presuming things do get to like some kind of normal state. But in general, when pandemics aren't going on, you tend to be playing a lot live, don't you? You're at the Whiskey A Go Go, and I see like footage of you doing covers with various people. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh yeah, I do the it's called Ultimate Jam. So it's put on by this guy Polly, who's he is literally the busiest performer I know. I mean, he just performs like virtually every night,
Really?
all year. And he's in tons of different bands and cover bands, and got all these different deals with venues, and I don't know how that dude gets sleep, but he also was a kid. But yeah, so they do this thing, Ultimate Jam, which is just a bunch of great touring musicians from around the world, like it'll be like Ozzy's drummer and Miley Cyrus's hand percussionist or whatever. Everybody comes in, and just when they're in town, they all get together, and then they pick their favorite singers, and then you just get thrown a song, and you don't have any time to like rehearse it or anything, and you just have to kind of put it together on stage without rehearsing with the band. So it's pretty. I mean, it can go south.
So they do tell you before, so you can learn the song. Right, yeah.
You can learn the lyrics, but I mean, a lot of the time you only have like a day.
Yeah.
And most of us are like working musicians, so like, we'll be doing our own stuff, so you'll really only have like an hour.
Jump in. Yeah. You're squeezing in like, oh, I've got to learn this, haven't I? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be like backstage before you go on, just like
still trying to get, what is that second verse? God damn it.
Yeah, so it's just like sometimes it's pretty wild. It's a pretty wild way to do it, but it's fun. Yeah, it's a great time. Yeah, like I've been on stage with Clem Burke and all these people I love. So yeah, that's a great time, and it's always cool to. I mean, for instance, like I was covering Queensryche there the other week, and all of these guys who tour with Queensryche were like forwarding videos of me covering Queensryche to the singer, and I was like, that's awesome! I fucking love Queensryche.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah,
so it's just a funny little surreal world and you're only an hour, and then you go back to regular life. So it's
normal life. Yeah, sure.
It's really like a weird thing.
And do you get to do much of your own stuff live at the moment?
I mean, I was about to do a bunch of stuff. I generally save a lot of my lives. I do like, obviously throughout the year, I'll do like 5 or so local performances, just to kind of, because I can't really stay away from it. But I save like a big stream of performances for when I have a release, which was
that makes sense.
What was about to happen. I was playing festivals and a bunch of shows, and
oh wow,
yeah,
so irritating.
Yeah, everything got put off, and actually we had a big release show at the Whiskey. So I mean, which probably at this point.
Yeah, I mean, what you're gonna do is this video's been out for 3 months, but hey, here's the release gig, guys.
So I mean, everyone's just kind of trying to figure out how to adapt. I think I'm gonna probably do like sorry, there's a really cute dog outside my window. The hardest part about this for me has been not being able to pet people's dogs. I want to pet every single dog. I just have always been okay, and I can't right now, and it's fucking heartbreaking. Yeah, so it's it's just adapting and everything, and so I'm gonna try to do some sort of cool online thing with the full band, see how we can set that up.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean,
isn't it? It's like, I mean, at the moment, it's like you can't even really all get together and stuff. So it's not even like you can do full band live streams and things like that anyway. So at the moment, you're kind of like, everybody's kind of reduced to like, what can you do? Literally, you in your room now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, which, I mean, I think that's why something like you, like, it really stands out, because you are really, as people will see when they see the live stuff, you're the genuine article. There's no like, it's not all been fixed up in the studio afterwards so that you sound like you can really sing amazingly. You can really sing. Do you know what I mean? So I think the truth will out in that kind of way, and it could be quite good for the people who genuinely know how to do what they know how to do. Hopefully it can be quite good for them, which is another hopefully good thing that could come out of this. We'll see. So
I guess it's like performing on SNL.
Yeah, it's not that funny. Like, it was Oh,
no
you
one
mean the musical segments? Yeah, no, I was just
the
joking.
musical segment.
I'm joking with you.
Well, that's actually how I decide
Actually,
who.
being honest, I've seen some more recent SNL, and I think it may have been funnier, but that's not because it was particularly funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so before, yeah, so yeah, anyway, so I could just refer to my notes quickly. So obviously we've been talking a little about the new single "He Sees Me" and the new video. So that's like, do you want to talk a little bit about where that's all come from and everything, because that'll work as a nice lead up to you know, showing you the clip of you playing it. That would be editing out that bit.
Yeah. So on April 28th, I'm putting out a new single and video called "He Sees Me," and I'm really, really psyched about it. It's the first love song I've ever written.
Wicked.
And like I said, I don't go particularly saccharine, but it's a very vulnerable song, and it's a very vulnerable video. It feels really intimate, and at the same time, it rocks pretty hard, and it's total ear candy. I don't know. It's got a lot of juxtapositions in it. It's a lot of idiosyncrasies, and somehow they fit together really well, which I feel like fits really well.
You as well, yes.
Yeah, it fits me well, and it fits with the theme of the song, which is just like, you know, all the kind of inherent polarities and, you know, the beauty of all of those things kind of mixing together in love. So it all poetically kind of fits together.
Nice.
And it's just the way that it formed over time. But yeah, the video is really cool. It's got some choreography to it, which I've never done before. That was a really intense video to shoot. I swallowed a lot of paint.
This seems to be a recurring thing with you, paint damage. You're gonna have to
get a lot of paint damage.
Out. You don't want to be the first rock and roll casualty to paint damage. That's like, you know.
It's not even the first time I've swallowed paint for a video, which is really funny. I know. I feel like I got the wrong lesson from Goldfinger. I feel like I should not to do this, but instead I went the other way. I'm like those guys who watch Scarface and think that he's cool.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here, I'm afraid. For a while, anyway. Now, obviously, you know, you have to slow down some things sometimes. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if you get anywhere close to Tony Montana style, then, you know.
Yeah, once you start blowing lines and wanting to fuck your sister, it's time to reassess.
Yeah, what is this thing with, like, all my favorite films seem to have this theme? Star Wars, Scarface, like.
I'm trying to think what else.
I don't even have a sister. That doesn't make any sense.
That's good. Otherwise, it'd be really awkward.
So in your press write-up, it says that one of your descriptions is garish. Are you reclaiming this word? Because garish usually has quite negative connotations, whereas I see it as like flamboyant, eccentric, etc. Those kind of things. And don't get me wrong, I'm just asking: is it time for now garish to take its rightful place in the compliments?
I think so. I think people have long mixed garish with gauche. And those are two very separate things.
Wicked. Awesome.
Garish really means incredibly detailed, flamboyant, like you said, kind of, it has a sort of a campy element to it, I think. But like a self-aware camp, I don't think it's the accidental camp.
Right, sure.
So maybe post-camp.
Tongue firmly in cheek. Tongue firmly in cheek.
You know, the Rocky Horror self-aware commentary camp.
Enough that you can still sing, of course.
Yeah. And I think, but to me, garish is more, you know, I think of like Klimt and Versailles and these things that are incredibly detailed, beautifully.
And very expressive and full on.
Yeah, very well done, as opposed to Trump Tower, which is gold, not for beauty, but just to.
Hey, look, he might be watching. I
Right.
don't want to scare away any fans. He might be watching right now, and he might have forgiven me for the last episode. Where,
Yeah. Whatever,
so
the NFL got my number.
He's going to be so disappointed. Every week he's going to tune in and like, they're dissing me again.
That's a really great fake headline. I can't remember if it was The Onion or something, but it was like, Trump warned that his TV ratings may go down if all U.S. citizens die.
That's so dark. So yeah, awesome. Is there anything else that you want people to know? I feel like we maybe didn't cover enough of your music and how that gets made. Do you want to just, because obviously it's, you're this lady who we can see, and then we're going to see you play an acoustic guitar. But obviously, if you go and listen to your album, it's a huge sprawling a rock opera masterpiece of huge diversity and dexterity, and there's a lot of different shades and colors and instrumentation doing its thing. There's like Bowie bits and Zeppelin bits and I guess Zeppelin / Heart bits maybe, and then there's some Queen bits. Oh, I noticed, by the way, on Space Cream's bio in your influences, it says Queen, blah 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 blah, Queen, blah 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 blah, blah. And it's like it mentions twice. Like, we really like Queen, okay, like that.
I didn't even know that. It's not even intentional.
It says Queen, and then it says a couple more, and then it says Queen again, in case you missed it. So
in case you missed it, I do love Queen. Queen's incredible.
Who in their right mind doesn't?
I don't know.
Freddie's just the best ever to walk on a stage and own it, basically. That's just
incredible. He's incredible. Actually, Muse was a really interesting band to see live, because I felt like he had a similar energy in person.
I'm not a massive Muse guy. I don't know whether it's just because I'm from Oxford and he sounds a lot like Tom York from Radiohead, and it really it's like for me, Muse just sound like if you took like Rage Against the Machine and got Tom York to sing or co-write songs with Rage Against the Machine members. Like Audio Slave, if it wasn't Chris Cornell, it was Tom York instead.
Well, do you remember?
And that should be good, but for some reason I don't like it.
No. I totally.
My friends love Muse, and my girlfriend loves Muse, and everybody I know loves Muse, and they all just go, "You're wrong, Lee," right now. So yeah, they're all shouting.
Muse, but I don't actually love their recordings very much. And the reason I mentioned that I like to watch SNL to decide who I'd like to see live, because it's similar to what we're dealing with now, is that the raw talent really has to stand out, because everything else because they put it together so fast, it will kind of fall apart if you're dependent on something else. So, I saw them do SNL and I was like, oh, he's got a great voice and he's an interesting songwriter, but like the production is very poppy. It's not really my thing. Like when I listen to it on the radio, I'm like, okay, whatever. But my old guitarist actually used to work for a law firm, and he got tickets to go see them at the Staples Center, in one of the boxes.
Yeah, apparently they do have an amazing show. So
their live show is incredible. They played in a round, and it was just a completely different band. It was this really complex, proggy arena rock.
Yeah.
And it was a different band, and it was fucking phenomenal.
Yeah. I'm sure I'd like it. I'm sure I'd like it if I went. I can't spend the amount of money to go because I already don't kind of like it that much, if that makes sense. So if I saw them at the festival, I'd probably be like, oh yeah, amazing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I would recommend, just if you're a concert lover, I would recommend going to see them live, because it's one of the few modern rock concerts I've seen that really captured a kind of spirit. And I like to be surprised as a cynic.
Yeah. Sure. It's nice. It's nice to be proved wrong as a cynic sometimes, isn't it?
It
gives you hope, doesn't it? It gives you a bit of hope. Yeah, I'm surprised I haven't been dragged along, like with like the amount of people who I know who are really into Muse. I'm surprised I haven't already been dragged along, being honest. But I did see them like way back before, like when Muscle Museum EP, before like like everything before they even were on a major label. I saw them with a band called K supporting them at a Little Oxford venue, and at the time I was nonplussed with them as well, so at least it's nice that my opinion of them has kind of just stayed consistent. But Matt Bellamy is a really nice guy, because I met him once when they were supporting Skunk Anansie, and he gave me a box of Lucky Strike matches. So I don't want to diss him too hard. It's just like a personal taste thing. You know what I mean? So
yeah, there's plenty of bands that I've played with who've struck it really big virtually overnight, and I'm like, what?
Yeah,
you know, it's just, you never know. But
I think the time when I was really in bands like heavily at that time as well. So there's this weird element of like, oh, what's so good about them kind of thing always.
Right.
You know, like, there's this weird like semi-professional jealousy that kind of creeps in with almost any band that's kind of like doing anywhere near, because we were a rock band anyway with melodic stuff and everything. Do you know what I mean? So it's like this kind of thing of like, hey, but we're way cooler than them. What's the deal? So yeah, so it's probably a bit of that. But yeah, so
Sure.
What I was going to say is, so with all this music, how do you get that all together? Because that must be a mission in itself.
How do I get what?
Your album, like, it's a whole load of stuff. How do you get that together?
So
Was that
I mean,
over years or?
yeah, I mean, so you asked about the, you know, my musical process and the songwriting process, which, by the way, please keep that blurb that beautifully eloquent blurb that you shoved out earlier, that you birthed.
Oh,
That
good.
was beautiful.
That's fine. All compliments always stay in, definitely. Yeah.
Oh my God, that was great. Yeah, so I guess it's always hard for me to describe the songwriting process, and because it's always a little bit different. But generally speaking, like I said, I play rudimentary guitar, and I write a lot that way. I also write sometimes without any instruments at all. So for instance, something
recording parts, or like
no,
demoing, or
just on my phone, just recording
right.
little voice memos. You know, for instance, like Pterodactyl Sky, which is a really bizarre song, and you know, ends up being a lot of the songs that will end up being really proggy are ones that I wrote without an instrument, because it's parts that seemingly don't belong together.
Right.
But then, you know, I bring in these consummate musicians, and
they make it fit.
Bridge, yeah, and they make it fit, and I'm able to get somebody with knowledge of music theory to translate what I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah. Awesome.
And they're like, oh, what you're doing there is, you know, like a 4/4 to a 3/4 change.
Oh,
and I'm
that's
like, okay.
that's Mixolydian scale. Oh, thanks.
Like, I don't know any of this stuff. I just do it because I feel it, and then it'll be really interesting, you know, because I work with these guys who went to Berkeley, so it's really interesting to hear them talk about it in actually correct terms. But yeah, and then sometimes I'll go into rehearsal and there will be a part written already. For instance, Creature was Saul Slotnick, my old bass player, just had this riff. And so we just started playing off of that. And then, you know, we usually I'll be pretty, I tend to be pretty, have like a final pick on everything, and be pretty involved. But generally speaking, I work with just incredible musicians. So they bring tons of their own ideas, and I'm really lucky. Like, you know, these are guys that are touring and everything. And, you know, I'm not a major artist, so they're really, I'm really lucky to have them with me, and they just do it because they actually like the music.
And
so
they believe in you. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, so the guys I'm working with are so fucking talented, and they come up with amazing stuff. Like Dave Wolfberg on He Sees Me, his solo on this is so fucking incredible. He's such an amazing guitarist and such a great, he writes such great guitar lines.
Right.
So you know, it does end up being collaborative for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think.
And like just so in terms of the recording, do you like? I mean, because it must take quite a while to get these like each song recorded and finished, mixed the way that you want? Is this like a kind of like you end up doing like a batch of songs at a time, or you end up doing like one song and just working on it until it's kind of done? Like, are you going back and forth and fixing up things all the time, or?
Yes, I'm really obsessive. Actually, I have OCD, so I feel like which is a bane, but also something of a boon when it comes to this this particular industry. And so oftentimes we'll go in and we'll do like a batch, and we'll, first you lay down drums, then you do bass, then you do guitar. And then I'm doing vocals, and because I'm so particular about my vocals, the producer that I work with has shown me how to cut my own vocals. Right. So I'll usually just go in and do that myself.
Right.
And then just go back and forth and do notes and check things out. I mean, he's got such an incredible knowledge of different things, so I'll just we'll play around. Essentially, we'll play around and kind of figure out what we want. And he'll bring his ideas, and I'll suggest something, and I'll be like, oh, I want this wah, 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 wah right here, and then he'll tell me what the fuck that is. a lot of my music life is my gibberish being translated into actual technical terms. It's like my Teletubby language being turned into English, but so then a lot of going back and doing notes. But then, for instance, like Atlantis, which was the titular song for my last album, that was done a little differently because I'd started writing that song with Dave, who I mentioned before, and then I went into Paul, who's the producer. And sorry, there's a bunch of background noise. I'll restate it. Hold on.
Got like are you about to be busted by the cops? Is there like a SWAT team flying over above?
No, we're still in Hollywood. So there's always helicopters. I'll go back so that you have a.
It's cool. It's realistic. It's realistic. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let me think about when the chopper came in. I had started writing this song Atlantis. With my guitarist, Dave, and then we kind of got to a point where we were stuck with it, and I'd written a lot of the lyrics and a lot of the parts, but I wanted it to be much bigger and have sort of a classical element to it.
Sure.
So I brought it to Paul, who's the producer, and he's very classically trained, and has more of a, like me, sort of a rock opera mindset.
Cool, wicked, yeah.
And so we worked on that, and we ended up laying down most of it in the studio, just he and I, because a lot of it was on piano, and he's primarily a pianist.
Right, gotcha, yeah.
So, and then we brought Dave in for the guitar part, and we brought the drummer to come in and kind of, lay stuff on top of it. But we already had, amassed this crazy 10-minute.
Right, wicked, yeah.
So it's different orders. It's really whatever the song calls is what we do. And then an album is really just picking the best ones. So sometimes you have to throw some stuff away or put it off for a while.
Have you got much stuff kicking about still that you're like keen to use? Or is
so I'm working on I'm gonna put an EP out later this year.
Cool.
And sometimes you'll save something. So for instance, Miss Moreau was written when I was in Space Cream, but it just never quite fit. And it's such an odd song. And then when I went solo, I was like, I can just do whatever the fuck I want. This
works, yeah. This can be whatever I want.
My first solo album was really just a hodgepodge, although kind of I think thematically strung together pretty well. But
it feels like a work that sits together. I think when you take the tracks in isolation, maybe there's I felt when I listened to Daddy Issues, that struck me as being something that was earlier like that you'd maybe put together earlier in more like a kind of early rock days before you kind of started going, I'm going to make this huge, and like so, but it had the sound that worked with some of the other rockier stuff, but
Yeah.
was a bit more of a tight kind of just kind of here's a rock song kind of thing, if you know what I mean.
Actually, Daddy
Still,
Issues is newer.
was it really? Oh, that's interesting to know.
Yeah, because I'd been doing all of these high concept songs on the album, and then I just wanted something
Rock
fun.
out. Right,
Yeah, I
got
just want to have
yeah,
a good time. And then
yeah.
I get the Ann Wilson thing so much, which I personally find a little bit irritating, just because I don't think we
I
I
think
just don't think we
everybody
sound
does.
yeah, I just don't think we
I think
sound all that familiar, all that similar. I think we're just
it's just that you've got a really strong, powerful projecting voice, and it's set to rock that is of a, for want of a better description, 70s-ish kind of
right.
nature. Do you know what I mean? So that, like, if you shorthand Heart, you either get all the 80s ballads that they did in like for movies and stuff, or you get like Barracuda. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So if you're leaning towards Barracuda, then that's a kind of shorthand for what you do without it being what you do, if that makes sense.
For
I
sure.
think
And
be,
we
yeah.
leaned into that with Daddy Issues because I was just like, fuck it. If people are gonna
Do it.
if people are gonna tell me I do this all the time, I'm just gonna fully do it on one song and like chew on the fucking marrow.
Where we have this night in Oxford, which is a covers night where everybody just gets drunk and plays a load of covers, all the bands and stuff. And we'd been compared to the Stooges so much, and I'd got so many Iggy Pop comparisons that we just said, usually you pick like a few different songs by different people. We just said we're going to do a full-on Iggy set, and just like picked 3 Stooges song and 1 Iggy solo, and I literally like was stripped to the way being Iggy Pop, rubbed peanut butter on my chest, like the whole do you know what I mean, like the whole lot, and just was totally Iggy, just to kind of get it exercised for once and for all. Right, okay, this Iggy thing, right, we've got to put this to bed now. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And I feel like my newer songs, you know, and I think as a songwriter and an artist you change. I feel like I just hear it less and less in terms of I think on Creature it was probably really showed up. I just think people aren't used to hearing a woman sing on hard rock without going full scream. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I have an operatic voice, so it's the only reference that they have for
there's
that.
not that many. Yeah, there's not that many. For want of a better description, singy singers in hard rock music in the female, especially in the female range. The press, I feel like, seems to like women most when they're going, I'm so angry, I'm going to be obtuse. And I'm not saying like there's anything wrong with that, love all that stuff entirely. But I think that kind of stuff gets more kind of headway because it's got this kind of other manifesto almost attached to it intrinsically, if that makes sense. So it's seen as being almost political without actually having to be overtly political in any way, in a strange way. Do you know what I mean? Which is interesting. I mean, I'm a huge Hole fan, and L7 and Babes in Toyland, and I've produced a first band that I ever signed to my label was 3 15-year-old grunge girls, and 15, 16, 17-year-old grunge girls, and they were just awesome. And you know, and I've produced a couple of, you know, girl bands in my time and stuff like that. So I'm not saying anything negative about it whatsoever. It's more people's perception of things. And like I'm a huge fan of Skunk Anansie, who have Skin, who's the lead singer. Have you heard of them? Skunk Anansie. I'll send you some links, but she's a phenomenal singer. But it's strange because although they are kind of super famous, but they're also a strangely cult in their own way, in the way that you haven't heard of them. When I send you, like, they've headlined Glastonbury and they played Nelson Mandela's birthday party, and do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, huge things. They supported U2 on the Zooropa tour and stuff like that. Like, huge things. They once because their guitarist produced Smilex. So once he was telling us about this gig he played, he said, "Oh, once we played this gig, it was the Sex Pistols, Rage Against the Machine, and us." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? You were like first on at the greatest, like, most rebellious gig ever." Do you know what I mean? It's like, so yeah, so they're huge in their own way, but like for some reason it doesn't always translate to kind of crossing all these radio boundaries and press boundaries. Do you know what I mean? So,
Right.
so it's probably part and parcel of that kind of thing. You're in a very small selection of people who do quite a unique thing in that way. Hence why they keep having to kind of go to Rocky Horror or something like that to even describe what you do. So with your flamboyance crossed with your thing, then it kind of makes them shoot over to like theatrical before they even analyze how many rock singers you might be like. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I definitely pull from things like Rocky Horror and Hedwig quite a bit. Heart, I wasn't even a fan of until I started getting compared to them all the time, and then I started listening through and getting really into it.
I didn't know the
way more into
Stooges
them and just being like, oh, it's really interesting.
Yeah. I didn't know about the Stooges until my bassist introduced me to them. And so the Iggy thing was a total, like, I didn't know I was being like him. I thought I was being like Henry Rollins, crossed with some Scott Weiland, crossed with some Freddie Mercury and some Prince and some, do you know what I mean? I didn't know it was Iggy Pop. So yeah. So
Pop, actually.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah,
How was that?
Very drunk with him.
Wow.
Awesome. He was nice.
I'm jealous.
Honestly, kind of soft-spoken.
Yeah, he seems like a cool, considered guy.
Yeah, he was very soft-spoken, very calm.
Yeah.
Very
or maybe catatonic.
Maybe. He had like a measured
right.
sort of.
He's seen it all. He's seen it all, and he knows when to get.
I just seen him on stage, and he was losing his mind. I mean, he wouldn't get off,
Yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing.
The split is really great, and I really appreciate that, actually, just because I feel that in my own life quite a bit.
Of course. I think the person on stage, if you were that person all the time, you'd be absolutely unbearable to all humans. Not you, I mean one. If as a singer, do you know what I mean? Like that.
Yes, I know a couple of people like that, and I do love them, and I've learned quite a bit from them in terms of like, putting myself out there and networking and stuff. But yeah, it's a lot.
But
I'm also really grateful for those people because.
They have to exist. It's just hard to be one, isn't it?
I think it'd be really hard. I just, for me, I'm,
I don't think I'm necessarily fired on positivity as much as some of those people as well. Like I write from quite a depressed place or a negative place or an angry place or all these kind of weird emotions that I want to sort out, like, if you know what I mean. So I'm not sure. I think people who are kind of like that way all the time, I think they're like fired by an innate, is that the right word? Certainly like a kind of positivity that's just a little never-ending burning fuel of something that keeps them ignited. Do you know what I mean? Whereas I feel like I need to dip now and then. Do you know what I mean? I can't be all the time. Do you know what I mean? So,
I think people are just different levels of extrovert and introvert, and I'm somewhere in between. And I spend a lot of time out there. Like this quarantine thing has been incredibly hard for me. My boyfriend's totally fine with it. He's like, as long as I get to see you, I'm fine. And I'm like, I need to hug like 7 people a day. You know what I mean? Like, I just need it. But at the same time,
are you getting him to dress in different outfits and then hugging him? Just get him to dress in like their different outfits, and then you can hug 7 different people, and they'll all be him. And he'll be getting so many hugs, he'll be pretty chuffed anyway. So it'll be worth. Plus, you could film it and then make another video.
Yeah, totally. But it's just interesting to see. And then but I also, like, no matter what, I need several hours a day kind of to myself just to think and like to develop ideas and to really kind of dig into all the creativity, into the thinking, and I have to draw from myself
and be in it.
Mm-hmm.
And be in it, because life's quite easy, especially when you're projecting quite a larger than life kind of thing. Life has a way of kind of like going, it's really normal, and it's really like a kind of oppressively boring in a sense. So like you have to spend a certain amount inside you just to kind of find the fantasy and the magic and everything, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I mean, as a kid, I have a brother, but he's 20 years older than me, so I'm essentially an only child. And I spent so much time by myself just reading and drawing and thinking, and so it's still really an important part of my life.
Right.
Just developing that. Um, so yeah, I think otherwise you just run out of material.
Yeah.
What are you drawing from? You know what I mean? There
Yeah,
has to
yeah,
be depth.
yeah. Awesome. Yes, I think that's a great note to wrap on. I'd have some depth,
Have
right?
some fucking
have some,
depth.
have some already. Yeah. So okay. Well,
Summer houses. Oh God.
yes. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. It's been lovely, and I wish you all the success for all the future stuff. Obviously, we'll chuck up all your info and everything, so that people know where to find you. But is there any final message you have for the world during this crazy time?
I would say, and it's the advice I keep giving myself, and something I keep having to come back to, which is just try to find things that you can do for other people in a safe way, obviously.
Sure.
Um, because like call somebody and check up on them, find how they're doing, see if there's something that you can, donate safely, that kind of thing. To
Yeah.
me, that's been the most helpful, just to get out of my own, because when you're
Yeah.
only surrounded, yes, said it, don't surround yourself with yourself. It's a dangerous neighborhood to go in alone, I think.
Awesome. Wicked. So you gave Yes's advice instead of yours.
I gave yes advice instead of mine. God damn it.
Wicked. Thanks so much for spending the time with me, Savannah. And yeah, I will look forward to the new video dropping
Okay,
on April 28th.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, and rock on. I wish you all the best.
Take care.